Hi, welcome to A Foreigner in the Philippines. You know, tonight I'm just looking at success stories and survival stories, okay? And I think that Golden is looking on them with me, even though she doesn't read very well. Well, I wonder what is the point of success stories and extreme survival stories? You know, there are some books that I've read, and you will have probably gathered that I gain much information in which I cobble together what I laughingly call an education, and I get a lot of what I learn I get from books. I read a lot. One way or another I have read a lot of books. At one time I made up my mind that I would read everything that I could get my hands on, and I must have read over 100 books. I used to ask people, what's your favourite book? And then I would actually make an effort to go to the library and I'd get it and read it. Of course, if I spoke to someone who I didn't get along with greatly, and I didn't judge that he made a lot of sense to me, I wouldn't be asking him. I mean, I might be talking to someone who recommended a comic book. Well, I didn't always follow every recommendation. Now, what I did read, years and years ago, I read The Swales Family. Anybody ever read that? Tales of Survival on the Sea. A family, man and wife and their child. They went to sea and they had some terrific adventures. And then there was a book that I read which had a great impact on me for the sheer survival potential of the guy who was the star. He wrote the book called Adrift. And Adrift was something of a record because the man was at sea in a tiny raft after his boat went down, and he was adrift and survived the longest time at sea. It was something like 3 or 4 months at sea, and he survived. Obviously he survived without he didn't have a big supply of water, and he didn't have a supply of any food that lasted longer than a few weeks, but he survived. And his story is an incredible story of success and survival. The other one, I never read the book, but I did look at, reluctantly at first, but I looked at the movie of the guy who he cut off his own arm. He fell while climbing, and somehow a boulder fell and wedged his arm, and his arm was wedged from about the forearm, the hand. The hand got stuck, the boulder moved, jammed it, and he was there hanging in like what I think climbers call a tunnel, a narrow gap between two major pieces of rock. So what did he do? He had yes, not the rear end, okay. He had a knife. I'm guessing it was like a Swiss Army knife. He hung there for quite a few days until he realized he was just going to die, and then he thought, well, I'm going to have to do some major surgery, literally, and he cut his own arm off and survived, and wrote a book about it, which I haven't read, but I did watch the movie, which was pretty inspiring. Why am I interested in watching or indulging in a story where a man cuts his own arm off? Of course I'm not. But what it does when you see someone who writes an incredible success story, or writes an incredible successful survival story, what does it do? Inevitably, if you have any guts about you at all, you're going to say, well, if he can do it, I can do it. I've actually talked to people who think quite differently about this, and they are people who seem doomed to failure. I remember someone who listened to a great pianist, and he listened to this pianist, and because the pianist was incredible, he gave up playing the piano, because he said, well, I'm never going to be that good, so I'll give up. That attitude is just totally beyond me. I just can't understand it, because if one man can do it, then it's it's possible for everyone to do it. At one time I used to say, anybody can do anything, nothing is impossible. Unless, of course, you're a one-legged man who wants to be a ballet dancer. When I was on YouTube once, I happened to have recommended to me a very touching ballet movie. And I watched this movie, this clip, and guess what? The man was an incredible ballet dancer, and he only had one leg. And he does this incredible duet with a ballerina. And the ballerina, of course, is absolutely gorgeous, a little waif of a woman who could do incredible things. He actually used a crutch, and after a while the crutch didn't look like a piece of machinery, a mechanical aid. It just blended in with the whole thing. And then, of course, on the last second, I think I catch myself saying, oh yeah, but I mean, he's got a beautiful woman there. But then when I looked closely, she only had part of one arm. Now it sounds like a comic tragedy, but it wasn't. It was extremely beautiful, and the cameraman had the sense to show little clips, little shots of the audience who actually were in tears, not because they were sympathetic, but because of the sheer beauty of what these two otherwise disabled people had managed to go on and do, in spite of everything, in spite of those people who give up and don't achieve anything. Now let's make something clear. We've got all kinds of people out there who are inspiring, but also daunting, are awe-inspiring, who may overwhelm us with what we perceive is just too much talent. Well, yeah, of course he's a great artist. He's just talented, isn't he? Try saying that to an artist. Well, yeah, I can't draw like you because I'm not as talented as you. It's just, you're just talented. The artist will tell you that nothing makes them madder than that. Nobody gave me an overload of talent, they will tell you. I damn well worked for it. There's that obvious story of the woman that goes to, this is a Japanese story, the woman goes to a famous Japanese artist, and she said, I would just love to have, I would like to commission you to draw for me a horse. And he says, I will be glad to do that. And she says, how long? He said, I'd like you to come back in 1 week's time. And in 1 week's time she goes back, and of course he presents her with an incredible drawing of a horse. And then he gives her his price, and it's 5,000, whatever it is, Chinese yen, Japanese, whatever. She says, 5,000? It just seems too much to me. It's just one drawing. How can you charge 5,000 for this drawing? And he goes over to a drawer, and he pulls open the drawer, and he dips in and he scoops out the content onto the floor. And there are hundreds of drawings of her horse. In other words, it wasn't talent that produced the horse that she was paying 5,000 for. It was a great deal of hard work and dedication and focus, plus of course talent. But talent was not always the major factor, and there are so many stories that are like that, which leads you to looking at what is it that makes an icon iconic, an icon figure iconic. And we've got so many of them. Without me remembering a single word, the man who invented the computer, his vision was a computer in every home, and he did it. Look at the guy who invented Facebook. Facebook it's as famous as a religion. It has become, do you have a Facebook page? Nobody says, what's Facebook? They know instantly what Facebook is. And these people or iconic. Were they nice people? I've no idea. Is an actor a nice person? When you say, I love Robert De Niro, are you saying I like him as a person? I doubt it. How do you know him? You like his work. It's what he does that makes him an iconic, legendary figure, and he will be legendary. He will be remembered for his work long after he's gone. Not trying to push you off, by the way, Robert. Anyway, so what we have to actually look at is that the people that do are the people that are remembered, revered, change the world. Now, let me give you another side of the story, another side of the coin, before we close on this. A number of years ago, when I was a professional musician, I was working in a band that I'd been working in the band. I was on this band for 7 years, on the road, going everywhere, every day, different place, different gig, sometimes working for 6 weeks without a single night off and all over the country. So there was one guy that joined that was a player. Let's call him Davy. And Davy was an average player, but he was very pleasant, he was easy to get along with, and everybody liked him. It was to such a degree that I looked at Davy long and hard and thought, what's his secret of being so likable? In the end, I concluded that, in fact, he was likable to everyone because he never really stated a definite opinion. He never said, I think this. He never actually crossed anybody's level of their own reality. He never disturbed anybody. He didn't make any waves. Everybody loved him because he was a danger to no one. Now, as soon as you start to become a danger to someone, be it in crossing or disagreeing with them, or doing something that they really don't agree with, then you are in danger of being disliked. And being disliked, being worked against, being opposed, being argued with, being hated even, is all part of the fact that you are doing something. I used to say that when I used to get people saying, you're not going to do that, are you? I would know that I was on the right track. Don't do that. As soon as you start, everybody talks about being in your own comfort zone. And they speak about comfort zone as if it is something that affects only you. Your comfort zone is not affected only by what you do. And think about this. Somebody said about something that I did very recently, well, he's just behaving as if he knows everything. No, I'm just behaving as if I know that is true for me. That's what I'm behaving. That's how I'm behaving. Golden. So as soon as I state something which is too certain for someone, too this or that for someone else, then I will be judged for that. Not always favourably, and not always in a likeable way. Right? My only rule on people disagreeing with me is, as long as you don't start getting nasty and saying, oh, look at that idiot, and doing all of that, you're fine. Disagree away. You can disagree. I know that I'm not right about everything, as anybody knows about their own opinion, that it is purely their opinion. But if I feel certain about something, then I'm damn well going to say it. And everybody else is going to say it. But you have to be aware that as soon as you do, then somebody somewhere will oppose you. And in a way, a mark of how original your way is will be shown in how much opposition you get. So the more that you do something, the more you are likely to be opposed. Got to get used to that, and it has to be learned. Now, I've read terrible things about the man who did Facebook. What about the man who invented the Apple, the Apple computer? He was an iconic figure. He was in many ways a strange man. Not everybody loved him. Somebody did. Some people loved him. Some people admired him so much. He made a lot of people an incredible amount of money by what he did. But he was iconic, and therefore he stood alone. So he must have been quite used to being opposed. A lot of actors have the same situation. They have the same problem. Some actors who are rising, powerful figures, powerful in their job, and they'll throw a tantrum about something. Oh boy, is everybody there ready to jump on that? Well, yes, he is, because he's an icon, and he is to be opposed. So, got to get used to it. The more that you do, in whatever field you are in, the more that you are likely to be opposed. Now, I'll give you this one example that a mentor of mine, somebody whose opinion I value greatly, said to me this. When I was being criticized a great deal, me and Beth and our channel, we were the, as I often jokingly say, we were the flavour of the month for so many expat sites who were slagging us off. And my friend said, if you are a boat and the sea gets rough, the boat will be tossed about. But think about it. The island remains firm. So don't be a boat, be an island. Irrespective of that old saying, no man is an island, think like an island. The opposition, the resistance, the ocean will wash over you, and you will still maintain your position. A good piece of advice from my mentor, and I thank him constantly for that piece of advice. Well, been on for too long, waffling away, don't I just? Thanks for looking in. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. If you've lasted this long, spend a few more seconds and give us a thumbs up. Bye for now.